how to do that. All right, Periscope is up. All right. You ready to rock and roll, Jared?
Yeah, let's get it.
All right. Let's switch over. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Jared and Levi's soon-to-be titled podcast. We actually kind of have an interesting format coming up, so we'll have a name for it here pretty soon. But for right now, it's soon-to-be titled. But as implied in the title, I am Levi Stevenson of Wide Right 90 Light, and joined by Jared Stansbury from Cyclone Fanatic. How's it going, Jared?
What's up?
You know, not too much. Glad that tomorrow's Friday. It's been a week.
I definitely get that.
Yeah. So
seems like it's been a long one.
Yeah. So today we're playing MLB The Show, rocking some Angels and Blue Jays. A couple struggle buses from this past season. But the topic of the day, Jared is going to convince us that Nickelback was actually the best band of the 2000s. Really looking forward to this because hating on Nickelback's been cool for probably longer than they were in style.
Yeah, I feel like there's been some like revisionist history on Nickelback in like the last 10 years probably. I think people forget how big a deal they were there for a while, like in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s.
Where do you want to play? Got an opinion?
Let's go somewhere classic. Let's go like not the Polo Grounds.
Not
let's
the Polo
go
Grounds.
Yeah.
Where did we play last time? I'm trying to remember.
Texas.
Yeah, play at the old Ranger Stadium. Do they have Old Bush Stadium in here?
No, let's go to Yankee Stadium though.
Yankee Stadium. All right.
Yeah.
October night game. Let's see here. Sure, why not? Cavan Biggio. Caven? I don't know. I don't know who that is.
I think it's like Kevin Biggio. I don't know how
it's
you
a
can.
Horrible name. It's a horrible spelling for Kevin.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right, but I'm not
because I'm assuming it's Craig Biggio's kid.
I believe so. I would have to look that up.
So, Nickelback is an interesting one because they were like it or not, they were very popular in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, out of nowhere, everyone just decided to start hating Nickelback.
Yeah, and I think I think the reason that people probably started to hate them was more to do with the fact that, if we're being honest, a lot of their songs are very similar. But I think that you can respect the fact that they know their formula for success and they can stick to it, and they don't see a reason to be different, I guess would be the best way to put it. But I think you can also look at, if we're being honest, Drake has put out a lot of hit songs. He's the all-time leader in in songs hitting the top 10 on the Billboard charts. And how many songs has Drake had that hit top 10 that were so different? Like,
right.
He's got a pretty similar formula too. So it's like, why does Nickelback catch that heat?
Right.
When some of these other big time artists don't, and someone like Drake is obviously revered as potentially being one of the great hit makers of all time, at least statistically.
Right.
And I got some numbers here. Nickelback had 19 songs that made it onto the Billboard 100 charts in between 2001 and 2008, I think it was.
19? Really?
Yeah, 19 that made it onto the charts, and they had one song go number one. That was How I Remind You, which is still probably their biggest, their biggest, hit when it comes to numbers and things like that. But
Right.
then they had 6 other songs that made it into the top 10, including I think 4 off of their album, The Long Road. I want to say is what the name is, but that had Rockstar and Photograph and.
Oh yeah, it had the Dodge Charger on the front.
Yeah, and there was a bunch of songs on that album that all made it into the charts and were there for a really long time. I mean, How I Remind You was number 1 for 4 weeks, but it was in the charts for 49 weeks, and basically was in or around the top 10 for about half of that time.
Yeah, I think the thing working against Nickelback, the problem is that the 2000s had a lot of good bands.
Yeah,
had a lot of really good bands. It was kind of the birth of one of my favorite genres of music in general, which was kind of the post-grunge. Well, not just post-grunge, but also kind of the pop punk, like the All Time Lows and the Blink 182s, and now Blink was around. Oh God, Blink was around before that, but Green Day really hit its stride in the 2000s. Linkin Park showed up. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, Linkin Park, Green Day, Snow Patrol, Korn, Slipknot really hit its stride. Fall Out Boy, System of a Down was there, but they really took off in the 2000s. And obviously, Blink 182. There's just so many big time bands there.
right.
And actually, another one that I didn't mention was one of my favorite bands of all time, period, which is Avenged Sevenfold. They had some really big hits. A couple of them that were on Madden games and stuff like that.
I was going to tell you too. That is Craig Biggio's son.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's wild because there was I have it written down here. 1 second, I'll look at it in between the innings. But when they did when Billboard put out a list at the end of the 2000s, 1 second. I gotta look at it. At the end of the 2000s, Billboard ranked them as the most successful rock group of the 2000s. Their song "How You Remind Me" was listed as the best-selling rock song and the 4th best-selling song of the decade overall, which is like nuts to think about. And then they were listed number 7 on the Billboard Top Artists of the Decade, with 4 albums listed in the Billboard Top Albums of the Decade, which I would imagine was probably 200 or something like that. I didn't look at the actual list, but but that's what I'm saying. When it became like trendy to hate on Nickelback, and I'm not going to sit here and say that like I listen to Nickelback every day or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a thing where people, all of a sudden one day we decided like, man, Nickelback sucks.
Yeah.
And that definitely was not the prevailing thought, 10 plus years ago.
I think it's probably just some guy showed up on the internet, but the main complaint, obviously, as you kind of mentioned before, is that they have a formula and they stick to it. Like they know that they can hit the power ballads, and they have a couple faster ones, but the power ballads is really that's where their bread and butter is, and they know it, and they pumped out a bunch of them. So I guess my counter argument is not from the standpoint of Nickelback sucks. It's more of they have a lot of competition. Because you talk Linkin Park, I have to look up what kind of stats they had, but they cranked out a ton of bigger hits. Now they might not have topped out in the charts quite as high because Linkin Park is more of an acquired taste than it's less palatable to the average person than a Nickelback would be.
See, but the thing that I think that like Linkin Park can be knocked on is that like Nickelback had 4 straight albums that hit either number 1 or number 2 on the Billboard charts, and I think they had a string of 7 that made it into the top 10.
Yeah,
and like Linkin Park has had, obviously they had some staying power. Like it wasn't like they had one big album, but I mean it's really like, what's the one with I can't even think of the name of it, but there's the one that had almost all of their really big songs.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the album, but it had like Numb and Bleed It Out. And it had a lot of their big songs like all on one album. Yeah,
and then they did like 21 Guns and that was Green Day. Yeah, that was Green Day.
Now Green Day is another one that they pumped out a lot of good songs on multiple albums in the 2000s.
And even then, though, like, you think of Green Day, and I mean, I think of American Idiot just from
American Idiot, yeah, for sure.
Like, that's the one that comes to mind for me. And, like, the other crazy thing is that Rockstar was on the Long Road Ahead.
Right, yep, that's the one, yeah.
It was on that album, and that album, I think, came out in 2004, but that song didn't hit its peak in the charts until 2007, which is when because that's what I was thinking about. That's the song when I think of Nickelback, like,
yeah,
that's the one that I remember being the biggest. And that was like when I was in middle school, and you know, when you're in middle school, everybody's like, "Oh, Nickelback's awesome."
Yeah. And
I didn't realize that it took almost 3 years for that song to really hit its peak on the charts. It's almost kind of like
that's very Imagine Dragons-esque.
Well, yeah, it's Imagine Dragons-esque. The other one that I thought of was Lizzo.
Okay.
Her album came out, I want to say in 2016, and it didn't hit. Truth Hurts didn't hit the Billboard charts until summer of 2019. So it's like, but in that meantime, I mean, nobody had really heard of Lizzo before that, unless you were a big fan of her or something. I'd never heard of Lizzo before that.
Yeah.
And whereas like Nickelback was having hits all over the place in the meantime, and they just never put Rockstar out as a single to where it could chart like that.
Yeah, where it could get the legs. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they did, and it skyrockets up into the top 10.
Yeah.
And I think that actually When September Ends was the same way.
When September Ends, yeah, that was, that sounds about right. And I know, well, American Idiot was the big one off of the American Idiot album, obviously.
Yeah.
But then like Boulevard of Broken Dreams and Jesus of Suburbia, and I'm trying to think what else is on that. There's a bunch of them on that. Holiday is on that album.
What I was gonna say though is that like Nickelback had some staying power of like 4 or 5 albums, and even when they're making new music and things like that, still these other their songs from their past albums are still like just working their way into the mainstream.
Right.
Whereas like I think of like Fall Out Boy, and when Fall Out Boy put out their first album not their first album, but their album that had Sugar We're Going Down and Dance Dance and all those.
Thanks for the Memories, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then Thanks for the Memories was their next album.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep.
And they put out those two, and it was like, okay, this is probably the peak for Fall Out Boy. You know, probably Thanks for the Memories was really the like statistical peak. I'd have to look at that, but
yeah, probably.
But I think of Nickelback's peak just being longer. I guess would be the best way.
Yeah, they were popular for, well, they were at their peak for longer, I would say.
Yeah.
Now Fall Out Boy is still kind of around. They're still kind of here and there. Like they've had a couple decent hits recently, but yeah, they're not at their peak or anything.
I went to a Fall Out Boy concert in 2018. It was one of the worst concerts I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I used to love Fall Out Boy, dude. Like that was one of the bands. I mean, again, like think about what age I was at this time. It was just like, you know, I was probably about 12, 13. I didn't know what any of the songs were about. They didn't make any sense. Fall Out Boy songs make absolutely no sense if you don't have any context of, you know, sex or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so after they kind of started to level off and they started doing their newer stuff, I have never listened to anything, and they played so many of their newer songs where I'm sitting there like, dude,
don't know any of these.
I don't come to a Fall Out Boy concert to listen to your album that you put out in 2017.
Right.
Like, maybe some people here did, but like, I guess when I thought that I was going to a Fall Out Boy concert, I was going to hear Fall Out Boy play the hits.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Derek Fisher found a new life on the Blue Jays.
It's just like if you went to, like, I went to a Chance the Rapper concert after he put out Coloring Book, and I loved Coloring Book. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I also saw him in the Chicago Theater. It was right before Coloring Book came out, like the winter of 2016. And so it was right, like he put out Acid Rap, he'd put out 10 Day, and then he had just put out Ultralight Beam with Kanye West. And he played all of his features that he did during that time. He played Acid Rap and 10 Days straight through, which was really cool. Yeah. And then when he did Coloring Book, like so many of those songs that, you know, were kind of the ones that I really loved had kind of fallen out of his set list just because of the length of Coloring Book. He basically played all of Coloring Book straight through, and that was about it outside of a handful of maybe 2 or 3 other songs from those other albums.
Sure.
And I feel like now, like if he went on tour now, I don't know that I would want to see Chance in concert because I didn't really like his 4th album that much, and I just feel like I've been able to get a read on the way he picks his songs to play is very much like on recency.
Right.
So it's like he's going to play the album that was like by far the least well received.
Yeah.
And like that that always bothers me about some artists. Sorry, I went on a tangent about Fall Out Boy and started talking about Chance the Rapper.
No, but it's all applicable though, because in contrast, like I mentioned before, one of my favorite bands is Avenged Sevenfold, and I went to get moving.
Yeah, it's gone.
Hey,
I hung it to you.
That's the first time I've actually been able to like sort of figure out what's going on with Otani. But what they did, I've seen them a couple times. I think I've seen them 3 times now. Is that what they do a good job is they understand why people are there. They're like I don't know if you know much Avenged Sevenfold, but they're there to play backcountry and Welcome to the Family and Nightmare and all this or whatever. Like they're gonna play the songs people are there to play. They'll play some of the new stuff off their newer albums, but the more popular ones. But they also know that the reason they're there, that the reason they're playing, like a few years ago when they played at Iowa Speedway with Metallica and Volbeat, the reason they get to share a stage with Metallica is because of those old hits.
Right.
I mean, their new stuff is very good, actually. But the old hits are what people are there for, so they understood that people really want to hear those too. And of anybody I've seen, they put a show together better than most people. Metallica was very good in that same concert. Actually, that's kind of an interesting kind of tangent we can go on too, since I think we've gotten to the point now where I think the Nickelback thing, I suppose, is sort of solved, that they are far better than people give them credit for. But is artists and bands that there's a difference between the ones that know how to put a show together and that are performers, as opposed to the ones that are just singers or whatever. I mean, or they just like they're good when they have to be in a booth, Right? Yeah, they're good. They're good in the studio.
Yeah.
There's a couple bands that I can think of off the top of my head that I will say though that one of the reasons I like rock is that because it is an inherently live form of music. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously in the studio you get reruns and stuff like that, but you're still playing live instruments. I mean, even in the studio you still have to play the guitar well for an entire take. So there's a certain live component built into them, and rock bands don't get popular unless they start out in some sort of live setting. Generally speaking, there's a few of them maybe that have trickled up.
Right.
Most of them though get their start in a garage or in a bar or something like that, and that's just how it goes. Where that's not always true in other genres. That's certainly not to say that people in hip hop and pop and whatever that they aren't talented or that they haven't worked their way up. But
no, you're definitely right. That's why my favorite concert I've ever been to is Chris Stapleton.
Ooh, yeah. He'd be awesome. Yeah.
Country music is almost the same way.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is the same way. Yeah.
You don't get to be a famous country artist by like putting out a mixtape, or putting your music on SoundCloud.
And hate on Luke Bryan all you want, but the guy can still sing. I might hate his songs, but if he had a better songwriter, like a Chris Stapleton type songwriter, he'd probably be a very, very good country artist that a lot of people, that even true blue country fans would enjoy. Yeah, beyond just the cheap song here and there.
I doubt that there's many people out there who are gonna like question Luke Bryan's talent. Maybe there is more than I would realize, but it's just like, when he's the epitome of what Chris Williams calls douche country.
Right. That's exactly who it is. Yep.
And I think the thing that is cool with rap is that my favorite concerts I've ever been to are when you get a guy who can get up on stage and do his rap songs, which like it's really tough to do sometimes, especially with some of the guys that I've seen, and they're able to make it sound almost exactly like what it would in a studio.
Yeah.
You know, the best rap concert I've ever been to was Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
And that's because Kendrick, even his music that he like puts out on an album, as cool as the beats are and as good as he is at picking his samples and things like that, though, what makes Kendrick's music great is Kendrick.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have that much to do with all of the other stuff, you know.
Right.
And so when you go to a Kendrick Lamar concert, literally the only person you're going to see on the stage during a Kendrick Lamar concert, unless he brings out a special guest or something like that to do a feature that he had in a song, is Kendrick Lamar.
Right.
And I had never seen anything like that at a rap concert, where it's just like this.
I've been to like a couple, and it seems like all of them have like 7 people on stage with them.
Yeah, they have a hype man, and like, you know, you got your DJ and all that kind of stuff. Like Chance the Rapper's got his band, but like that's how his music is produced. But with Kendrick, it's literally just Kendrick up there just going off, man. And it's really cool to see, because it's like I'm watching a guy who might be the best rapper in the world right now, just at the peak of his powers.
Right.
Just going off. And you know, so he is really good. And it's like Kendrick didn't get found as a rapper by doing shows, you know. I mean, maybe he did on some level, but like people probably heard Kendrick's music somewhere, or like he had a mixtape or something like that someone heard, that it's like, okay, now this guy's the real deal. But then you look at a guy like, I saw T.I. in concert.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what we were kind of talking about before. This concert was actually a pretty stacked concert. This was like in 2014. And the people in it were G-Eazy was the opener at like 4:30 in the afternoon. And then 2 Chainz was on, and then T.I., and then Lil Wayne. And T.I. got up there and played one song for, I swear to God, it felt like 15 minutes. And it was Blurred Lines. And think about how big T.I. was like in, you know, 2008, 2009, with like with the Paper Trails album, you know, with the song he had with Justin Timberlake. I can't even think of it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I was like, I'm sitting there like, bro, this guy's not going anywhere. I'm not here to see T.I. anyway, but it's like, why would T.I. get up on the stage and only, man, I'm talking too much, and only perform a song that isn't even his song? Like that was the dumbest thing to me. And that's where it's like, some of these guys got to have some self-awareness of like, why are people here to come and watch me? And in reality, like I said, at that concert, nobody was really there to see T.I. They were there to see Lil Wayne. Yeah. And
I can appreciate a good cover, but there's a difference between doing a really good cover and just doing something like that, where you're just totally not even playing anything that people are there to see.
Yeah, and I think he might have a feature verse on that, on Blurred Lines. I haven't heard that song forever.
Sure, but that's not even his. That's not his song.
No, it's not his song. And yeah, like that was just that's what makes like rap concerts cool. Is like, how do you find a guy who's a great talent, who is just great at putting together music in the studio, and he can rap like, you know, when it's just you and him or whatever. But then all of a sudden you get up on a stage in front of 15,000 people or whatever, and that music still has the same effect as if it was just you and another person sitting in the studio.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kendrick has that. Chance has that on some level. Schoolboy Q's a guy I saw who had that. And that is probably the same too with rock music on some level, where it's like,
the nice thing with rock,
it's just like guys like getting up there and
the interesting thing about rock is that its fans are super sensitive to to bands that sell out, quote unquote. Yeah. And rock probably, this may be being called being a homer or whatever you want to call it, but I think rock fans tend to hit sellout bands a lot harder than some other people will hit in certain genres. I know like country doesn't hit the sellouts hard enough. They actually make a ton of money off of them.
Right.
But like if a band came, like when a great example actually is before Chester Bennington died, Linkin Park's most recent album came out. It was a lot more poppy than a lot of people expect from Linkin Park, and it was I didn't hate it, but there's a lot of like of their true blue diehard fans that really didn't like it at all, and they like let them know about it. Even the diehard Linkin Park fans were like, no, this is terrible. And they got off because they felt that Linkin Park had sold out and made a pop album, which anyone that's familiar with old school Linkin Park was very not poppy.
That's what's tough about rock music is that I feel like it's probably easier to fall into that genre a little bit. At least it maybe was. It maybe was more so at that time, because that was like that was the big kind of music. Like, well, now,
and rock has always prided itself. It always prided itself on being the anti-pop. It prided itself on being authentic and being live music, being not acoustic but sort of. It's being a showcase of raw talent. It's being authentic. It's being an expression of emotion and feeling that pop wasn't, or that at least rock tried to paint pop as being. Was being emotionless and just kind of boxed and canned.
Well, because I would say like that the 2000s era that we were talking about with Green Day and Blink-182 and obviously Nickelback and all those kinds of bands, that to me was the tail end. I think if you really looked at it, that was the tail end of when rock was like if pop is always going to be tier 1, that was the end of rock being like tier 2 in the music hierarchy, if that makes sense. That's
probably fair, because the problem is that while I do love me some Green Day and some Blink-182, love those bands, they definitely, I mean, they are drifting towards pop with their music.
Yeah.
Now early Green Day didn't. They were still very grungy and punk and stuff like that. But especially like Blink-182, they started out more punk, but they got poppy. No, I did. Have you heard Blink's newest album?
Yeah, I love Blink.
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
But it's different than old Blink-182.
But it's understandable because of what they sang about when
Oh yeah, it's different.
I don't know how old
they're not the teen angst anymore or whatever. I mean, the guys are in their 40s now, so they're just talking about different stuff. And so you wouldn't expect them to be talking about things in high school being bad because they're in their 40s.
Right.
So that they have to evolve and stuff like that, just like anybody else. But there's other bands though that have aged really. Like Metallica has swam against the current for a long time. They are metal as we know it now, and even their new stuff is still very, very much Metallica. They haven't strayed at all towards the pop version. That's why Metallica has had so much staying power, is because they are Metallica. They have excellent songwriting. They have their guitar parts are complicated. They're great group. They have the songs have a great sound to them. A lot of them are kind of relatable. They're deeper. Some of them are dark. A lot of them are dark. But they're also Metallica. They know what they're good at, and they didn't sell out. If anybody has ever like listened to James Hetfield talk in a podcast, actually his podcast with Joe Rogan was phenomenal. If you want a good one to listen to. But you can. James Hetfield is a very, very authentic person. Cory Taylor from Slipknot. Slipknot is another band that they don't stray. They know that Slipknot fans like Slipknot, and they make Slipknot music, and they stick with it. So when you go to rock shows, it's easy to pick out the bands that are good, that are really like they were born as performers and became recording artists, and you can tell the ones that kind of it happened at the same time. A couple of great ones that I've seen that a lot of people don't necessarily think of as much. This one's kind of more of a blast from the past, but Papa Roach, it's a very, very good live band.
I believe that.
They're really good. Last Resort in person. The other one that I saw in the same concert was Sum 41. Now that's earlier than like the Blinks and stuff like that. They're a true more 90s type band.
Shout out to Fat Lip, man. That was a great song.
Fat Lip, dude. Fat Lip, and they're a really good band. So funny thing with that, actually, that happened with them when they were on stage, is at the concert we were at, there was a guy that was dressed up as Deadpool. This would have come out right after the first Deadpool movie came out. And so there's a guy there dressed as Deadpool in the crowd, and he's standing up there, And the Sum 41 guy, who's clearly out of touch, goes, "Hey man, Spider-Man!" And everyone just booed him. He's like, "Boo!" It was super funny. Actually, that whole festival was really interesting because it was Sum 41, Papa Roach, the Pretty Reckless. I don't know if you know much about Pretty Reckless, but they're a really good band. The lead singer, her name is Taylor Momsen. She was Cindy Lou Who in the original Dr. Seuss live action, and she became a badass like metal singer. Yeah, she's really good. That's a band for you to look up, Jared. Is the Pretty Reckless?
I'll check it out. Sure.
They're really, really good live.
But
kind of the headliner of that whole show, well, actually, Pierce the Veil was there too, but the headliner of the whole show was Soundgarden. The interesting thing about Soundgarden is that was the only rock concert that I've ever been to where something... Oh, I hung the shit out of that. That was it was a really weird rock concert. I'll tell you why here in a second, because it made sense afterwards. But it felt weird because Soundgarden, the lead singer is Chris Cornell. He's in Soundgarden, Audio Slave, Temple of the Dog, all these.
He passed away last year.
Well, so it was a couple years ago.
Okay.
That whole concert felt odd. He was a little bit behind tempo. He just didn't sound. I mean, his voice is so good that it'd be impossible for him to sound bad. But he was behind on his tempo. Like Black Hole Sun was good, but he was behind, and it felt like it was super laggy the whole time. Like you were just waiting for him to hit the Black Hole Sun or whatever. Like he was behind. And something felt wrong. And then 3 days later, Chris Cornell passes away. So I actually ended up seeing his second last concert ever. That was the only concert that I've ever been to, a rock concert, where the energy was just off. Because even if you go to rock concerts of bands you don't know, or they're not quite the kind of rock you like. Like when I went to a System of a Down concert last year, it was System of a Down and Ghost, both team bands I really, really, really like. But the openers were like Beartooth and a couple of them, which are really, really like heavy metal bands, kind of more like thrash metal type of stuff. And that's not for everybody. It's okay. I'm not as big into the thrash metal, so it's not necessarily my kind of music. But even in that type of rock where it's a little bit too much for me, even that though, there's still like really good energy, and you can still tell that they are playing to their fans. They see there's Beartooth fans out there, and they're playing Beartooth. But that Soundgarden concert was eerie because it didn't feel right. Chris wasn't looking out into the crowd at all. Wasn't really interacting. Like a lot of rock singers tend to be very interactive with the crowd. Talking to people and asking them questions and they're playing different covers and stuff like that. And he wasn't doing any of that, so it was a really odd experience. But as a general commentary, rock tends to do a really good job with that as far as overall quality of the live experience. The good ones are really good, and by rock standards, the bad live bands are still pretty decent. Oh man, this is bad.
Oh shit! What?
What's going on? No! Shit.
Dude, I thought I got you already.
I thought you did too.
I definitely get that. I haven't been to a rock concert in a long time, man.
I'm gonna take you to a good one. Whenever concerts get going again, I'm gonna take you to a metal concert. Because going to like a rock concert, if you go to like, I don't know, I don't even know what's.
My cousin told me
rock is so polarized now. It's like the really good ones are all like heavy bands, like they're all metal and thrash metal and shit like that or whatever, or you go all the way to like Imagine Dragons, which is barely rock if it is at all.
My cousin lives in Oregon, and he told me that I needed to go and see Slipknot last year when they were at the state
Slipknot's
fair.
awesome.
I literally don't think I could tell you a single Slipknot song, no. So it's like
there's a couple of them you'd hear and be like, oh yeah, I've heard that one. Because they've had a couple like universally popular songs, not like #1 hits on the Billboard because it's still Slipknot.
Get up, ball. Oh.
But Slipknot is really good.
Is there anybody out there that it's like you haven't seen yet that is on your bucket list of people you want to see?
I would like to see Pearl Jam. I've not seen Pearl Jam. Would very much like to see Pearl Jam. Are you talking about rock or just in general?
Just in general.
Billy Joel, I would very much like to see.
That would be a great one. I'd like to see that one too.
I wish I would have done it, but when who the fuck's in my bullpen? That guy's in my bullpen. All right, let's do it. But it was Billy Joel and Elton John were touring together for like a couple, like maybe 5 years ago or something like that. I really wish I would have gone to that. That would have been an amazing concert. I'm glad I saw Metallica. I saw System of a Down before they were going. Actually, while they're still touring for however long they are going to tour, I would like to see Rage Against the Machine because they are touring again finally. I'm trying to think if there's anyone. I haven't seen Green Day, so I would very much like to see Green Day.
That was a hell of a throw. Man, I'm trying to think. Yeah, Green Day would be awesome. The last rock.
Actually, another one that I would really want to see is Paramore. I very much want to see Paramore. Their energy as a band is so cool. Like Hayley Williams is such a cool person. Like I really would like to see Paramore.
Oh my gosh, that was a hell of a throw.
Yeah.
Oh man. Tie game. Last rock concert I went to was Fall Out Boy, but I don't even know that I would call that rock. I mean, I guess it is, but
it's marginally.
For rock concerts, the one that I really want to see is I really want to see Blink, man. Like,
yeah, I haven't seen Blink either, so they're on my list. Actually, another one. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but Hailstorm. There's a couple. They haven't produced a lot of big time hits or anything, but I have a special appreciation for female singers that sing metal because there's not a lot of them, but the ones that do it tend to be really awesome. And she's a metal singer. I need to start paying attention. This game's getting a little bit intense.
Oh boy!
No!
Let's go! Get there! Let's go. Woo!
This is bad.
So now to the plate, Anthony.
Oh!
All right. We're going to suspend the music talk here for a second. I need to concentrate on this baseball game.
Oh, get through. No.
You son of
a... Let's go!
Damn it! Oh, shit, there was 2 outs. God damn it. That is poor awareness on my part.
Man, I should not have swung at that pitch either.
No, it was bad.
No.
I love you, Albert, but you're slow.
Yeah, very, very slow. Man, the people that I would like to see, like I said, I'd like to see Blink. Man, so J. Cole, I don't know if you really listen to any. I don't know how much rap you really listen to.
Not a ton, but I know who J. Cole is.
Yeah. He doesn't do concerts very much. He'll do a handful a year usually in really big cities, unless he had just put out an album or something like that.
Yeah.
And when I was in Las Vegas, the summer of 2017, he was doing a show at the MGM Grand in a tiny theater that probably held, a couple thousand people. And I didn't go. There was tickets online for $100. And the fact that I didn't go is one of my great regrets because he is one of the people that would be right near the top of my list of really wanting to see. I don't listen to as much rap as I used to, so it's like, and I've seen a lot of the guys I really like. So now it's like,
Yeah.
I don't even. Now the guys I want to see are like country. I'd like to see Luke Combs.
I would love to see Luke Combs.
If Chris Stapleton came back, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
Yep. I don't know if they're still touring or not, but I would like to see Rise Against. I like them a lot. They have 2 songs, one song in particular. One's called Savior. The other one called Prayer of the Refugee that a lot of people would know. They're pretty cool. They have a lot of energy. Actually, I saw Breaking Benjamin a couple years ago, and they were awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
They did. They actually covered Smells Like Teen Spirit, which was amazing because nobody ever covers that in concert because nobody has the balls to. And then they covered the Imperial March from Star Wars. It was awesome. That one was a concert. It was Avenged Sevenfold was a headliner, but then Breaking Benjamin and who was before them? Mudvayne maybe. Mudvayne I don't really care for. Interesting part about Mudvayne though is their lead singer was the lead singer for Puddle of Mud, or not Puddle of Mud. What the hell am I thinking of? Hell yeah. Actually, both of them. Actually, now that I think about it, is Hell Yeah is who I saw. The lead singer was the lead singer of Mudvayne. Anyways, you probably don't know who either of them are.
Nope.
Hell yeah, I wouldn't pay money to see them again. Let's see here.
So many concerts now, like, I want to go to them because I know that it would be a interesting experience.
Yeah.
Like DMX, that was one that I knew full well going to that concert. Like, this is probably not going to be a great concert, you know? Like, DMX just got out of prison. He's 40-something years old, maybe even older. And you're just like, I have no idea what to expect right now. But I just really want to be able to say that I went to a DMX concert, and it exceeded all of my expectations. It was everything that I wanted it to be.
Nice. That's good, because DMX is his type of rap is... It could be really good in concert, and it could be really bad.
Yeah, well, and I can imagine that he was probably a great performer like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's just been a rough couple decades for X.
Yeah, it has. Actually, the band that would be first on my list that I need to see live, get them. Yes, okay.
Ooh, that was a hell of a play.
Is Tenacious D. I need to see Tenacious D.
That'd be a good one.
Oh, my God. Tenacious D, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have not seen the Foo Fighters. I love the Foo Fighters, and I have not seen them. I know they were in Des Moines, but I couldn't make it to that concert. I really wish I would have. Oh, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I haven't seen them either. I would like to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I'd really like to see Lil Dicky.
So, I started watching Dave a little bit based on your tweets. It is pretty damn funny.
Dude, he's hilarious, man. That's one of my favorite new shows in a long time.
The comedic timing in that show is really funny.
Yeah, have you listened to much of his music?
No, I haven't.
Man, there's some songs out there that I promise you, like, if you check them out, like, he's got some music videos that are worth the watch.
Yeah.
Because the way that he is able to weave a narrative through his music is, there's not many other rappers that can do it as well as him. I'm not saying that he's like one of the great rappers alive, but like at that one specific thing, the storytelling, hip hop, he is really, really, really good at that. And you should go and watch the Pillow Talking video because it is phenomenal. It's about 7 minutes long, but I promise you it's worth it.
Okay.
I have a friend who went to a Lil Dicky concert, and right when like all the openers were there and did their thing and everything, and it wasn't in a big venue or anything like that, and right when Lil Dicky came on stage, I mean, I doubt you've ever been to a rap concert really, but one thing that often happens at rap concerts is people are generally smoking marijuana.
Yeah, well, that's a rock concert too.
Yeah, I mean, really just any concert, but so, you know, as many people in this concert did at that time, oh man, he started
perfect and a perfect fly ball, and I used my power swing.
Man.
All right,
he started to light up at that time, and right when Lil Dicky came on the stage, a guy came up behind him and kicked him out. A bouncer came up, told him that he was gone for smoking when there was probably 500 people in the concert that were smoking at the same time.
Son of a...
So he didn't even get to hear the end of Lil Dicky's first song at a concert that he paid $50 for because he got kicked out before the first song was over.
Yikes.
And what a comeback. Clutch performance from the Angels.
My everlasting... So, two things. Two stories. One, this is not really a story. But the first one is that when I was at the Avenged Sevenfold concert at the Iowa Speedway with Metallica, I was moshing to Backcountry and I actually cracked my rib. That's my everlasting memory of that. But I've actually been to an Insane Clown Posse concert.
Oh, wow.
That was something.
Yeah, I can imagine that was something.
We went on Halloween. The concert was on Halloween. If anybody knows anything about Insane Clown Posse, they are different.
Yeah, to put it lightly.
There's some different cats, but their whole thing is that during these concerts, they have like just thousands of 2 liters of Faygo pop. Like it's a crazy like off-brand of pop, but the whole thing is that while they're performing, they take the cap off, they put their finger in it, they shake it up, and they just launch these 2 liters of pop into the crowd. That's what they do for like the whole concert. It's the weirdest thing ever. Regretfully, I did not dress up and put face paint on, but I should have, just to be part of the experience. But yeah, going to a concert and then having them chuck orange Faygo all over the crowd, that was weird.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The weirdest one I've ever heard of, though, is at Rammstein concerts. They used to dump hot coffee on the crowd.
That does not sound enjoyable.
No, it doesn't. But imagine listening to Du Hast, and then all of a sudden boiling hot coffee comes from the ceiling.
I would not want to go to a concert.
Well, leave it to German.
I would not want to go to that concert anyway, so it's like...
Leave it to German rock groups to do that.
All of a sudden, then you've got hot coffee spilled on you. There was a concert that my mom and dad went to. Man, I can't even remember who it was. Oh, it was Phil Collins. They went to a Phil Collins concert like last...
I wish he still played.
Summer. And right when they got to their seats, the girl behind them spilled a beer on my dad. And he was texting me how pissed off he was about like the entire show. He's like, ruined the entire experience for me because this girl just spilled her beer all over me.
I just thought of a band that I regret not seeing is Rush. Because Neil Peart is like my hero. He's like one of the reasons that I got into drumming and play the drums now and stuff like that or whatever. Like Neil Peart is my dude, but he just died, and it is very depressing. I wish I would have seen him live.
You still play the drums?
Yeah, I've actually just behind that door. I've got a drum set and a guitar and a bass.
Can't see you, but
well, yeah, you can't see me, but
everybody
else can. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, I used to play drums too. First couple years in middle school, first couple years of high school. But
you want to do a home run derby and keep BSing, or what are you thinking?
No, I probably better get off because I got to get ready to do our CF.
Yeah, you got to do your
Zoom call.
Yeah,
I got it.
Premium Zoom calls.
Yeah, it's duty calls, man. But it's good to talk to you.
Speaking of duty calls, I think my dog's looking at me. Like she needs to go outside. So.
Yeah, my dog's passed out. So
mine's a puppy. She's been doing that all day. Now she's just got puppy energy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right,
so
man.
Everybody, hope you enjoyed our talking about Nickelback for 5 minutes before we decided we both agreed, and then we just talked about music for a while. So, but we should talk about a little bit about what we're going to do next week.
Yeah.
So our plan going forward, we actually have a format. So we kind of talked about it a little bit and thought, it's fun playing Madden and MLB and stuff like that while we're doing this. But we thought it would add to the experience. Sorry, my dog is climbing into the picture at this moment. It would add to the experience if you guys had something, besides just listening to the conversation, that we had something that we could kind of build on a week-by-week basis. So it can kind of be, sort of episodic if you want to call it that. But then there's more to it than just a random baseball game going on in the background. So starting next week, we are going to be starting a brand new game of Ark Survival Evolved, which is a sandbox game with a kind of a unique twist that you don't see very often. You're surviving on an island, but it is populated by dinosaurs, and you can tame them and build bases and ride dinosaurs and stuff, and it is amazing. I've played it. I've probably played it 600, 700, 800 hours at least. Actually, probably more than that. Probably close to over 1,000 hours on Xbox before. But we're gonna start a brand new game from scratch. Jared has not played. 100% chance he dies a shitload because Ark for the first 20 levels is you're gonna die a lot. That's
yeah, so if nothing else, you can tune in and watch Levi get pissed at me because I don't know what the fuck I'm
doing. So we're gonna start doing that next week. But anyway, so we'll have that, and we'll have a name for you for the podcast. I don't know if nobody's probably sitting on their fingers waiting for that. But anyway, so we'll have our new game next week. We'll have another topic that we're gonna start talking about. So everybody have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend.